I discovered my husband and best friend's affair at my 5-year-old's birthday party when their intimate photos appeared on TV in front of everyone, including their spouses and kids. 3 days ago, I 32F discovered that my husband Zach 34M had been cheating on me with my best friend Tamara 31F for the past 8 months. The worst part is that I found out about it in the most humiliating way possible, at my daughter's 5th birthday party in front of our entire family and friend circle. I spent weeks planning Sammy's birthday party. I wanted everything to be perfect because she had been so excited about turning 5. I ordered custom decorations with her favorite cartoon characters, arranged for a professional face painter, and even learned how to make those complicated balloon animals she loves. Zach seemed really involved in the planning too, offering suggestions and helping with preparations. Now I realize he was probably just trying to cover his guilt. Tamara, who has been my best friend since our freshman year of college, was heavily involved in the party planning as always. She's been such a huge part of our lives that she was basically Sammy's second mom. She would come over at least 3 times a week, helping with Sammy's homework, having dinner with us, and just being part of our family unit. Sammy even called her Aunt Tamara. Looking back now, I feel sick thinking about how she used that closeness to betray me. The party was going great. Sammy was having the time of her life with her friends, the adults were enjoying themselves, and everyone kept complimenting me on the arrangements. Even my mother-in-law, who usually finds something to criticize, seemed impressed. Around 4 p.m., after cake and presents, Sammy wanted to show everyone the video montage I had made of her growing up. I had spent hours putting it together, including clips from her first steps, first words, and precious moments with family. That's when everything fell apart. When I tried to connect my phone to the TV, somehow it synced with Zach's phone instead and started playing his photo gallery. Right there, in front of everyone, our parents, siblings, friends, and worst of all, Sammy and Tamara's kids, dozens of intimate pictures of him and Tamara started showing up on the screen. There were photos of them kissing, cuddling in our bed, and even pictures from what looked like a romantic weekend getaway. I stood there frozen, remote control in hand, as my entire world crumbled around me. My sister Rachel 29F managed to turn off the TV, but it was too late. The damage was done. Sammy was tugging at my sleeve, confused about why Mommy looked so upset. My in-laws sat there in shocked silence. Tamara's husband Tom 33M, who I'd always known as this strong, composed guy, looked like he had been punched in the gut. Their kids, aged 7 and 9, were asking what was wrong with the pictures of Mommy and Uncle Zach. Tamara ran out crying, and Zach just stood there stammering about how he could explain everything. For context, Zach and I met 9 years ago through mutual friends at a housewarming party. He was charming, successful, and seemed like the perfect gentleman. We dated for 2 years before getting married in what I thought was my dream wedding. Tamara was my maid of honor, she helped plan every detail from the flowers to the honeymoon. When I got pregnant with Sammy 2 years later, she threw me the most beautiful baby shower. She was there through my difficult pregnancy, the traumatic birth, and the postpartum depression that followed. She would come over every day, helping with the baby while I could barely get out of bed. Zach and I had our issues like any couple. We disagreed about finances sometimes, and he worked long hours at his law firm. But I thought we were happy. We had just finished renovating our house, adding a pool and a playroom for Sammy. We were even talking about trying for a second baby. I thought we were living the perfect life. After everyone left the disastrous party, Zach tried to explain. He said it started when Tamara was having problems in her marriage with Tom last year. According to him, they would talk about their problems, one thing led to another, and before they knew it, they were having an affair. He swore he loved me and Sammy more than anything, that Tamara was just a mistake. Tamara called me that night too, crying hysterically, saying she was sorry and that she never meant to hurt me. She blamed it on her drinking problem and her troubled marriage with Tom. I didn't want to hear any of it. I kicked Zach out that night. He's staying at his brother's place now, though I suspect he's probably with Tamara. Tom moved out of his house too and took their kids with him to his parents' place. Tamara keeps calling and texting, leaving long voicemails begging to explain her side of things. My in-laws are divided. Zach's mom thinks I should try to work it out for Sammy's sake, saying all marriages have rough patches. But his sister Kate thinks I should divorce him immediately. Sammy keeps asking when Daddy is coming home, and I don't know what to tell her. The most painful part has been going through their text messages and realizing the extent of their deception. They had a whole system worked out. They would meet when I was at work or taking Sammy to her swimming lessons. Tamara would come over to supposedly help me with housework or watch Sammy, but she was really there to be with Zach. They even took a weekend trip together to a nearby beach resort. Zach told me he was going fishing with his college buddies, and Tamara said she was visiting her sick aunt in another state. I feel like my whole life has been a lie. The two people I trusted most in the world have been plotting and scheming behind my back, probably laughing at how oblivious I was. I can't eat, I can't sleep, and I keep replaying every interaction we've had over the past year, looking for signs I should have noticed. Sammy senses something is terribly wrong and keeps having tantrums. I've taken a week off work because I can't focus on anything. My sister Rachel wants me to stay with her for a while, but I don't want to disrupt Sammy's routine more than it already is. I don't know how to move forward from this. Everything hurts. Update 1, it's been 3 weeks since my last post, and I feel like I've aged years in this time. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. You were all right about getting a lawyer immediately. It turned out to be crucial given what happened next. The most shocking development came last Tuesday when Tamara showed up at my workplace. She waited in the parking lot until my lunch break and approached me with tears in her eyes. At first, I tried to walk away, but then she dropped the bomb. She's pregnant. She's about 10 weeks along and claims it's Zach's baby. I actually laughed when she told me this because Zach had a vasectomy 2 years ago after we decided Sammy would be our only child. We had discussed it extensively and agreed our family was complete. But Tamara kept insisting the baby was his. She said Zach had gotten his vasectomy reversed without telling me. I didn't believe her at first. It seemed too calculated, too cruel even for them. But she showed me the medical paperwork on her phone, including the dates and the doctor's name. My legs nearly gave out right there in the parking lot. I left work early and drove straight to Zach's brother's house where he's been staying. When I confronted him, he broke down completely. He admitted that he had the reversal done 6 months ago at a private clinic in another city. He paid cash and kept it off our insurance so I wouldn't find out. The reason? Tamara really wanted a baby, and Tom had fertility issues they've been dealing with for years. The level of betrayal here is staggering. Zach and Tamara had been actively trying to conceive while carrying on their affair. All those times Tamara cried on my shoulder about her fertility struggles with Tom, all those times I comforted her and told her to keep trying, she was actually trying to have my husband's baby behind my back. I couldn't stop throwing up after I found out. Tom didn't know about any of this. When I called to tell him, he went completely silent for so long I thought he'd hung up. He and I have been talking a lot since then, trying to support each other through this nightmare. His parents have been amazing, they're helping him with the kids while he figures things out. They even offered to let me and Sammy stay with them if we need to get away for a while. Zach's family has completely changed their tune now. His mom, who was pushing for reconciliation just last week, is horrified. She came to see me yesterday and broke down crying, saying she failed as a mother if she raised a son capable of such calculated cruelty. His sister Kate has been my rock through all this, helping with Sammy and accompanying me to lawyer meetings. I filed for divorce and am pushing for full custody of Sammy. My lawyer says we have a strong case given the circumstances, especially since Zach's judgment and decision-making abilities are clearly compromised. Zach is fighting this, of course. He keeps saying he's still a good father even if he was a bad husband, that his relationship with Sammy shouldn't suffer because of his mistakes with me. But how can I trust him with our daughter? This isn't just about the affair anymore, it's about his ability to make sound decisions that don't hurt the people who depend on him. Tom is also filing for divorce. His lawyer is looking into their legal options regarding the baby, but it's complicated since Tom and Tamara were still married when she conceived. Tom's main focus right now is protecting his kids, who are old enough to understand something bad is happening but too young to process the full extent of their mother's betrayal. The most painful part of all this has been dealing with Sammy. She's only 5, too young to understand what's really happening, but old enough to know something is terribly wrong. She knows Daddy did something bad that hurt Mommy, and that Aunt Tamara is involved somehow. She's been having nightmares almost every night, crying for her dad and asking why he doesn't live with us anymore. Her teacher called me last week because Sammy had a complete meltdown at school when another kid talked about their parents' divorce. I found a child therapist for her, and we had our first session yesterday. The therapist says Sammy is experiencing significant anxiety and confusion, which is manifesting in her behavioral issues. It breaks my heart to see my baby hurting like this. She didn't ask for any of this mess that the adults in her life created. Zach keeps trying to talk to me about setting up a proper visitation schedule, but I can barely look at him without feeling sick. Tamara sends daily texts apologizing and begging me to understand that they're in love and didn't mean for any of this to happen. I've blocked her number and told my lawyer to handle all communication with both of them from now on. I just can't deal with their justifications and excuses anymore. Update 2: 2 months have passed since my world fell apart, and things have gotten even messier. The divorce proceedings are moving forward, but new revelations keep coming up that make me question everything about my marriage and friendship with Tamara. Last week, while going through old papers to gather documentation for my lawyer, I found a box of Zach's old things in the garage. Inside were emails he had printed out between him and Tamara, dating back 5 years, around the time I was struggling with postpartum depression after having Sammy. Reading through them made me physically ill. They had been having an emotional affair while I was at my lowest point. I was barely functioning back then, crying every day and struggling to take care of myself and my newborn. Tamara would come over daily, supposedly to help with the baby and support me through my depression. Now I know she was using that time to get closer to Zach. They wrote about their growing feelings for each other, how they felt guilty but couldn't stop, how they were meant to be together. They claimed nothing physical happened back then, but I don't believe a word they say anymore. Tom reached out to me yesterday. He had been going through their home computer and found messages that showed Tamara had been gaslighting him for years about their fertility issues. She had actually been on birth control the whole time, pretending to try for a baby with him while secretly hoping to get pregnant with Zach's child. She even faked negative pregnancy tests to make Tom think there was something wrong with him. The level of manipulation is staggering. Zach moved out of his brother's place and is now living with Tamara in a rented apartment near her parents. They're trying to play happy family while both their divorces are pending. His sister Kate visited them last weekend to pick up some of Zach's things I needed for the divorce paperwork. She said their apartment was full of baby stuff already, and they were acting like nothing was wrong, like they hadn't destroyed two families with their selfishness. Zach's family is completely disgusted with him now. His mom found out he had borrowed money from her under the pretense of investing in his law firm, but actually used it to pay for his vasectomy reversal. She's devastated that he would lie to her like that. His dad hasn't spoken to him since the birthday party incident. The worst part is how Zach is trying to rewrite our entire marriage history to justify his actions. His sister told me he's been telling everyone that I was cold and distant after having Sammy, that I never understood him like Tamara did. He's painting himself as the victim who was trapped in a loveless marriage and found his soulmate in Tamara. He conveniently leaves out how I supported him through law school, how I moved away from my family to help his career, how I was the one who took care of everything while he worked long hours. Sammy had to switch schools because some parents found out about the scandal and their kids were being mean to her. At her new school, she tells everyone she doesn't have a dad. It breaks my heart, but I understand why she's doing it. Zach keeps trying to arrange visits with her, but she refuses to see him. The therapist says we shouldn't force her right now. The other day, I ran into Tamara's mother at the grocery store. Instead of being embarrassed about what her daughter did, she had the nerve to tell me that Tamara and Zach were always meant to be together, and that sometimes people have to go through pain to find their true happiness. I left my cart full of groceries right there and walked out because I knew I would say something I'd regret. Tom and I have both been served papers regarding custody arrangements for Tamara's baby. The legal mess is getting more complicated by the day. My lawyer says we need to be prepared for a long battle, especially since Zach and Tamara are now claiming they want to get married as soon as both divorces are final. They actually expect everyone to be happy for them, like we should all just forget what they did and celebrate their love story. Update 3, it's been 5 months since D-Day, and I can finally say I'm starting to feel like myself again. The divorce is settled, and surprisingly, Zach didn't fight too hard in the end. I think his guilt finally caught up with him, or maybe his lawyer made him realize how bad he would look in court given everything that happened. I got primary custody of Sammy, with Zach getting supervised visits every other weekend. He tried to argue against the supervision, but the judge agreed with my concerns about his judgment and decision-making abilities. His first supervised visit was last weekend and Sammy came home crying. She said he spent most of the time talking about the new baby and how she was going to be a big sister soon. The supervisor had to remind him multiple times to focus on Sammy. Tamara lost custody of her kids to Tom after a brutal court battle. Her drinking problem came up during the proceedings, along with evidence of her mental instability and manipulative behavior. The judge was particularly concerned about her pattern of lying and the premeditated nature of her deception with the birth control and pregnancy. Her kids are living with Tom full-time now, with Tamara getting supervised visits once a month. They refuse to meet the new baby or acknowledge Zach as part of their family. Tamara had a baby last week, a girl. The timing couldn't have been more ironic because I was literally signing our final divorce papers when Zach's sister texted me the news. Zach was there at the hospital with her while I was at the courthouse ending our marriage. They announced their engagement the same day, planning to get married as soon as both divorces are final. Zach's family is refusing to acknowledge the baby or attend their wedding. His mom told him he's no longer welcome at family events if he brings Tamara. His sister Kate stayed close with me and Sammy, saying we're still her real family. The karma started hitting them hard last month when Zach's law firm asked him to leave. Apparently, they didn't want the scandal affecting their reputation, especially after they found out he had been meeting Tamara in his office after hours. He's now working at a much smaller firm, making significantly less money. Tamara still can't find a job because word got around about what she did, and no one wants to hire her. They had to move to a smaller apartment because they can't afford the rent on their previous one. Tom and I have become good friends through all this. We have dinner together sometimes with all our kids. Sammy gets along great with his children, they understand each other in a way no one else can. They all go to the same therapist who specializes in helping kids deal with parental betrayal. Tom started dating recently, a lovely kindergarten teacher who his kids adore. Seeing him happy again gives me hope. I'm not dating yet, and honestly, I'm not sure when I'll be ready. Right now, I'm focused on helping Sammy adjust to our new normal and rebuilding my own life. We moved to a smaller house closer to my sister Rachel, who has been my biggest support through everything. Sammy's doing much better in her new school, making friends and slowly opening up again. She still has hard days, especially around holidays or when she sees her friends with their dads, but she's resilient. The hardest lesson I've learned is that sometimes the people closest to us are capable of unimaginable betrayal. But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I ever knew. I refuse to accept their gaslighting or let them minimize what they did. Sammy will grow up knowing that her mother chose self-respect and peace over a toxic marriage. Their actions showed me exactly who they are, and I believe them. I've gone completely no contact with both Zach and Tamara except for necessary communication about Sammy through our lawyers. Zach still tries to reach out sometimes, saying he misses our family and life was simpler before. I delete his messages without reading them. They made their choices, and now they have to live with the consequences. Meanwhile, Sammy and I are building a new life, one without lies and betrayal.